Hey, welcome back to my vlog. If you're returning, thank you for watching. Yay. If you're new, come find out about my messy life. I have to psych myself up to do these. I really do. Like, recording and putting this out there is still very scary. It's only my second vlog post. I say a lot, and I had to edit out so many ums for my last video. I also rambled a lot, so I have notes this time, like, that I'm actually going to try and follow an outline so that maybe I don't have to spend half my night editing out tangents. Okay, so today I want to talk about my kids' behavioral and learning issues. I had kind of touched on it a little in my first vlog. I'd really like to get into it today. What we're dealing with, what diagnoses my kids have, what diagnoses we're still in the process of working on, and just how it affects life, how I handle the behavioral issues, how we correct, how we work as a family. I'll get into all that. So the first thing I want to do is talk about their diagnoses. I have two boys. They both have issues that are diagnosed. My youngest son, he is diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder and ADHD. If you don't know what oppositional defiance disorder is, the best way that I can explain it is he's a little butthole. I love him to death. He can be hard to deal with at times. He is defiant. He fights anything and everything that he possibly can. My other son, Mikey, he is diagnosed with ADHD and was just recently diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder, which we need to get more into. He also has, he's not diagnosed yet. Nobody will diagnose till he's 8. I believe he's dyslexic. I'm dyslexic. I see a lot of the struggles that I had in him. He was tested. They were both tested for autism when they were little. And during the diagnosis, I asked the doctor about dyslexia because I was, even in kindergarten kind of saw it. And he said, well, he's got the markers for a language-based learning disability, but we won't diagnose till he's 8. Well, he's 7 now. So there is no diagnosis. If we go and retest and there is no diagnosis of dyslexia, I will be floored. I will absolutely be floored, but I will get into that a little bit later. Okay, so the way we handle the ADHD, because both boys have it, I've chosen to medicate my children. That was not a decision I came to easily. I'm also ADHD. I was medicated as a child. I feel for a while I was very much over-medicated, so I really didn't want to put my kids on medicine. I wanted to avoid medicating as much as I could. We tried diet changes, we tried limiting screen time, and it just got to a point where we were having so much trouble functioning. My little one with the ODD, like, he was just wild. I mean, meltdowns over nothing. Michael in kindergarten, he came to me and he was like, Mom, there's just so much going on and so much to look at. I can't focus in school. We went to their pediatrician and I was like, I don't know what to do at this point. I've tried I've tried diet changes, I've tried limiting screen time, I've tried discipline, I've tried setting goals, I've tried working on behavior. I'm lost. I don't know what to do. So he suggested medication, which I knew was going to come. Down here, it's weird. I grew up in New York, and you have to go to a specialist to get your medication. Pediatricians cannot dispense it. Down here, there doesn't seem to be too many doctors, especially doctors that will diagnose kids. I've had, or not diagnose, but treat kids, and I've had such a hard time finding doctors. The doctors that I have found over-medicate, pretty much is what it comes down to. I'll get into that in another post. Maybe I'll get into it later in this vlog. It depends how long it is. We are transitioning right now to a new doctor, so we'll see how that goes. Medications are a trial and error thing. It's a matter of trying different meds, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. Colin has been on, I think he's on his 4th medication now. He started taking medication, I want to say October of last year, so over a year now. We finally found a med that seems to be working like night and day difference. And funny enough, it's the same medication I was on when I was little. And from what I understand, it's not prescribed often anymore because it's supposedly ineffective. For whatever reason, it works best for him. It's the med that worked best for me. My oldest son is on his 2nd medication, and it seems to be working really well for him. He has obviously been growing because he's a little boy, gaining weight, so we are having to adjust dosages to find the dose that helps him but also doesn't zombie him out. That's a huge thing for me. I do not want my kids to be zombies. I want my kids to still have their personalities. I want them to still be able to have fun and smile and have friends. I know for me, I was on a lot of different meds, and I felt so disconnected from my peers. I didn't laugh, I didn't smile, I was a zombie. I am actually going to talk about the struggles with finding a doctor. This could just be for our area. Where I grew up in New York, it was easy to find specialists. More populated area, I live in the South. I live in a fairly big city, but that being said, a fairly big city in the South is like boondocks in New York. So, like I said, the pediatrician first started dispensing medications to us and referred us out for testing. I mean, put us on meds before we even did testing, which I found a little weird, but that seems to be normal. It wasn't bad. I didn't actually like that pediatrician. He was constantly insisting that both my kids were autistic, and there's a couple little traits there that maybe could have been autism, but he was insisting that they were autistic. Even after the testing was done, he was like, there's still probably autism there, and it was over an hour away from my house, and he ended up, I guess he got sick or something, and they closed the office for a couple months, and it was just, I moved my kids closer. I love our new pediatrician. Our new pediatrician was dispensing meds. Great. He listened to me. He put out suggestions for medications. He actually talked to me a lot more about the medications than the first pediatrician did. That being said, my ex-husband and his girlfriend and I all kind of agreed that it would probably be better if our kids, we'll say our kids, were seeing somebody who specialized more in this. So I asked for a referral. And from what I was told, he was the only doctor in the area that saw kids, and we started going to him. The appointments with him were just so brief, like super brief. He didn't mess too much with Colin's medication because we had found what was good, and Michael was still seeing the pediatrician. I forget why I didn't move Michael right over. I think it was more Colin was just kind of out of control, and I was looking for a stronger support system. I was looking for more answers. I was looking for more help. He was all right with Colin. We did try to put Colin on extended release when he turned 6, just because I thought it would be easier on all of us if it was just a 1 pill a day thing rather than having to take a pill at school. Colin, however, did not process extended release. For whatever reason, his body doesn't process it correctly, and it could just be that medication from what I'm told from this one doctor. It could be extended release in general. He ended up getting suspended from school for a second time while on extended release, and we went back to the immediate release, and it's night and day with him. Anyway, I eventually transitioned my other son to this doctor just because it was so much easier to knock them both out at the same time, the same appointments. This doctor has a license where he can call the controlled substances into the pharmacy, whereas the pediatrician didn't, so I would have to drive to the pediatrician to pick up the prescription, fill it, get it filled. It was a lot, especially working full time. Our first appointment, he diagnosed my older son Mikey with anxiety disorder. There is anxiety there. I am not going to say my child does not have anxiety. It's there. It is controllable. I can redirect him off the things that he worries about. Yes, I do know he does struggle with it. He is only 7 years old. The only drug that they can give a 7-year-old for anxiety, from what I've been told and from what I've read, and if I'm wrong, by all means, please comment, let me know, is Prozac. I have been on Prozac. I didn't like what it did to me. It was a bad situation. I ended up pretty much being forced to come off of it cold turkey. That will be another vlog post. Mental health care in our country. His dad does not react well to Prozac. We definitely had an issue on it. I'm not going to get into that right now. Maybe a little bit, but it's not my job to put his dad's business out there. There's no hard feelings. Our relationship ended badly, yes, but we have come so far from that point. Anyway, he insisted to put my son on Prozac. I accused him of over-medicating. I told him it wasn't a good idea. There's also family history of mental illness in our family. Histories that are usually red flags against Prozac. What it came down to is I was met very much with an attitude of, I'm the doctor, I know what I'm doing. I waited a few days to give him the Prozac, and then I started dispensing it. I regret that. My son had what I believe to be a psychosis event. He went into a rage at school, which isn't him. He's a sweet, sweet kid. He's probably the sweetest kid I know. It was just uncharacteristic. Like, we were literally having to physically restrain him. Like, you could not reach him. You could talk to him and he would respond, but it was a response of a yell. Like, he'd throw his head back. Ah! It was terrifying. It was so terrifying that we ended up calling the ambulance. They wouldn't even transport him at first because he was being so combative. They ended up having to call the police. They ended up having to call one of the supervisors for the ambulance corps. I physically had to restrain him, and I had him restrained for probably 20-ish minutes before he finally calmed down. When he calmed down, they agreed to transport him, and we took him to the hospital for emergency psych evaluation. By the time he was at the hospital, he was calmed down, so they wouldn't do anything. There was no need to do anything. He did not need to be hospitalized at this point. They did call the dispensing doctor. He told us to take him off the Prozac immediately. He had only been on it anywhere from 5 to 7 days. I don't remember exactly. So there was really not much of a worry about him coming off of it and detoxing. And since then, he's been fine. We did have, the doctor told us to come in the next day for like a follow-up appointment. I ended up sending Michael back to school. He had a day off. Sent him back to school, and I went and I pulled the boys' records from the doctor. They're not going to see him anymore. He absolutely disregarded my opinion as a parent. Ultimately, it comes down to the fact I didn't have to dispense those meds, and I'm mad at myself for doing it. It's a mistake. I make mistakes. I'm messy. I am mad that I put my child in that position. The only good thing, I guess, is he doesn't remember it. He remembers what led up to him getting so mad, and he remembers the ride in the ambulance to the hospital, and he remembers being at the hospital, but the actual, like, rage event, he has no memory of. It's very similar to what his dad went through, and I did make the doctor aware of that situation, but I had no way to prove that it was the Prozac. It was just kind of a hunch on our end, and the doctor was like, it's not the Prozac. Guess what it is? After the event at school, he skipped the next day. The principal and I decided to let him have the day off because when he came out of it, he saw everybody in the room, and you could tell he got really embarrassed, and you could tell he was getting anxious, and he wanted to be suspended. He was yelling, I need to be suspended, and I said, well, you know what, I bet your principal will let you take a day off school or two if you need it, and she was like, of course, she's wonderful, I'll get into the school in a little bit. The next day, we went to a program here that my city has. They have two programs, one for adults, one for kids. The adults program, do not recommend, 0 out of 10, horrible. Would never send anybody there unless they absolutely had no other choice and were in a crisis. Other than that, the adults program is the kids program though is amazing, absolutely amazing. My youngest was already enrolled in it for therapy. He sees a therapist twice a month. He also sees like a behavior therapist twice a month who helps work with him to control his outbursts, his anger, his defiance. It's a walk-in enrollment and it's only done on Wednesdays. We got there early and we managed to get the last slot they had for the day. So we went in, we got enrolled. They're wonderful. They know I have 2 kids in the program, so they set it up so that over spring break, which was this past week, both boys could see the same therapist on the same day, back to back. Like, as a single mom, that's amazing. So Michael's now going to be in therapy. They do have a doctor that dispenses meds through this program, and the boys have to have an initial visit with them anyway. Colin's already had his initial visit. Michael will have his initial visit, I want to say, on the 27th of this month. And then Colin will have his second visit. We're going to switch her over to the meds. She is not a local doctor. She's actually a teledoc. She is obviously within state. It's video appointments. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but we're going to try it. It's trial and error. So much of this is trial and error. This goes into how do we manage what's going on. Colin needs a lot more management than Michael does. Early on, after it was diagnosed ODD, I didn't know how to handle this. What I found worked for us and the way things just kind of played out for us, he seemed to get more gratification out of being in trouble, arguing, punishment such as like losing privileges or being put in timeout. Like, it would just make him explode, and he almost got this satisfaction out of those explosions. So my parenting with him had to change drastically. Almost became ignore the bad behaviors. As long as he wasn't putting himself or anybody else in danger, I ignored the attitude, I ignored the arguing. Friends of mine would start to argue with him because it's kind of fun. Not fun, but this was going on as young as 3 years old. Like, he got the nickname Thug Life when he was 3 and lived up to it. And so we would argue with him, and we noticed, the arguing makes things worse. So, we had to cut out all arguing. Don't argue with him. It was hard because it went against everything I felt was responsible parenting, letting my child kind of run the show. But if he did something good, if even asked him to put his socks on, and he did it without arguing, without fighting, like, he would get overpraised, almost too much praise. It definitely led to a lot of awkward situations, like when grocery shopping, he'd act up, he'd push boundaries, and I'd get a lot of comments that I was spoiling my child, that he needed a whooping, or, I could beat the bad out of him. I don't know if that's a southern thing or what, but that's not how we roll. That was rough, being judged by people that have no idea what's going on. Colin looks typical. There's nothing that outwardly looking at him would say that there's something going on in his brain that makes him act different. We've come such a long way, though. This medication that he is on right now, it's been night and day with him, to the point now where he's become responsible. He'll still kind of moan and whine if he doesn't want to do something, but it's a typical boy, I don't want to do that. It's not explosions. I mean, when I say explosions, toys would get thrown into walls, he would hit, he would spit, he would bite, he would throw himself on the floor, he would run away. It was like he couldn't function in society. This past week, especially, them being home for spring break, and I don't know if it's because I was home with them every day, I don't know, but his behavior has changed so much, and I'm so proud of this little boy. He's making good decisions. Cleaning his room is something he's obviously never liked to do. He gets that from mommy. When I was little, I would always fake a tummy ache when it was time to clean. But he would flat out refuse, just wouldn't clean. It was early on in spring break, and I had been in their room, and I was like, "Your room's a mess." He had been on his tablet and must have gotten bored, and went and got cleaning supplies out of the kitchen and went and deep cleaned his room. Like, got a garbage bag, threw garbage out, put dirty laundry in a pile, made beds, cleaned the windows, wiped down toys, put them away. And I didn't tell him to do this. I had just mentioned, your room's dirty, we're gonna have to clean it at some point this week. And he went all out. I kind of left him alone. I wanted to see what he would do. Was he actually going to clean, or was he just kind of playing around that he was cleaning? He cleaned. I'm still in shock. Like, that's crazy. He typically wakes up breathing fire, especially on school days. This morning was the first day back after a week-long spring break, and I fully expected him to wake up breathing fire, because that's typically what we have after a school break. He was whiny when he woke up this morning. I picked him up, I carried him to the couch. He can dress himself, but it's usually a fight, and I pick my battles. He didn't fight me on getting dressed this morning, though. When I said it was time to turn off the TV and get your backpacks, there was not a single complaint out of him. I had to go in with him to drop off his meds, and usually I'll get, no, you can't come in with me, and he walked in with me and was happy and went to class, and I did what I needed to do. I have a lot of communication with his teacher, so I sent her a text message this morning. We text almost constantly, even on weekends and school breaks, just about his behavior. She is a huge help in navigating this. She has a child with oppositional defiance disorder, so she's been amazing at helping me, and she's got the patience of a saint. She needs like a teacher of the century award. Anyway, I texted her. I said, we had a surprisingly good morning. Keep me posted how the day goes. And she texted back, and she was like, he came in all smiles and happy and went right to work. I am so proud. Just the way that he's been acting, and the lack of a fight in him, and the fact that he's even on medication, not a zombie. And the thing is, with spring break, I wasn't medicating him every day. I want my children to be children, so they don't get their ADHD medication on weekends or school breaks unless we have things that we have to do. That historically, Colin cannot function in society without his medication. He went several days without medication. The day he cleaned his room, he was not medicated. Like, this stuff's blowing my mind. Because of these things that we've been seeing, we are going to retest him. Talking to the therapist that he sees, she said that the place that I did have them tested at is very quick to diagnose oppositional defiance disorder. He may still have it, and we may just be managing it really well. We're leaning towards he might just have really severe ADHD and possibly anxiety as well. And now that we've found the right medication for him and the right dosage for him, and it's starting to manage, and he's seeing a behavioral therapist that is helping him find ways to use his voice to say, I'm getting frustrated or I'm getting mad, before he just goes straight to blowing up. We're going to have him retested and find out whether it's ODD or just severe ADHD. I don't know how much would change if his diagnosis changes, because what we're doing to manage it is obviously working. I think it's more on my end for IEPs or 504 plans. I want to have correct diagnoses. I'm excited. I'm proud of him. I've said it so many times. I'm proud of Michael too. Of course, I'm proud of Michael. Michael, compared to his brother, I make such a huge deal about Colin because Colin's behavior has affected all of us, including his brother. Colin's behavior actually has a lot to do with Michael's anxiety. They're classrooms are close to each other, and Michael is always worried about Colin. And if he hears a kid getting upset in Colin's class, his teacher said it distracts him from his work, and she's gotten to the point where she'll pop her head into the hall and be like, it's not Colin, and he'll go back to his work. Things are changing right now. Let me get into Michael and the dyslexia. Kind of touched on it already. The issue we're having with Michael and the possible dyslexia is without a diagnosis, there is no 504 plan or IEP that we can put in place. We can do one for his ADHD, but his ADHD isn't really the problem. It's controlled on meds. He doesn't need special accommodations because of that. He is having a lot of trouble with spelling tests and reading, and he tries. Oh my goodness, he tries. His teacher says that she sees that he tries. I mean, there is no doubt about it. It's not him being lazy. It's not him not trying. Math, he's great at. The only issue we have with his ADHD and the math is he knows what he's doing, so he'll rush ahead without fully paying attention to the directions. And then when they try to make him go back, it frustrates him because he just did all the work. Now you're telling me I gotta go back and do it all because I made a very minor mistake. You weren't paying attention, which then affects his anxiety. He may need medication at some point for that. That being said, the program that he's in, since they offer behavioral modification for Colin, we might be able to get Michael into that. We're doing therapy first, and then we'll see from there where we need to go. I'd like to exhaust those routes first. So the thing with the dyslexia is he's failing first grade. This kid is super bright. Kindergarten, I had enough money that I was able to pay for tutoring, and he did amazing. This year I don't have the funds to pay for a tutor. I'm doing the best I can. It was harder when I was working because I wasn't doing homework with him. The teacher is being flexible. She's letting me try some things that worked for me and my dyslexia and substituting those exercises for his spelling homework at night, and just to see if this method of doing it helps maybe make it stick a little more than what would for a typical child. The problem is the school district, and I'm not blaming the school. It's not their fault. There's guidelines that they have to follow before they can put an IEP in place. If they do not have a diagnosis, they cannot force an IEP. I cannot get a diagnosis till he's 8 years old, and it makes me feel like crap because my kid's probably going to have to repeat the first grade. He and Colin are only a grade apart. That being said, Colin, his father, his father's girlfriend, and I all agree that repeating kindergarten is probably going to be a really good idea for Colin. Even with the leaps I've seen in the last week or two, they've only got about 8 more weeks of school. Maturity-wise, Colin takes a lot longer to mature. We're all agreeing holding him back is probably going to be the best thing for him. And especially with Michael getting held back too. I don't know for sure Michael's going to get held back, but every report card, every progress report, he's in danger of being held back. I don't think it'll hurt him. He'll turn 8 next year. Then we'll get the diagnosis. As much as I had animosity for my mother sending me to private school, I wish I could do that. The thing I hated my mom for as a kid, I want to do for my kids. My mother sent me to a special education school. It changed my life, and I'm willing to bet it changed the lives of a lot of my peers. It's for kids with learning disabilities, and most of the peers that I'm in contact with still are now teachers. This school took children who struggled in school and changed their lives so drastically that now they want to be educators. I'm considering it. Okay, so dealing with the school. I've kind of touched on it a little. Where I live, the school district that my children are in has a terrible reputation, and they don't have the greatest rating. I've been kind of worried about that. Obviously, it's early on. One's in first grade, one's in kindergarten. Their school, they don't accommodate me more than they legally can. They work with me. They absolutely work with me. The more communication I have with them, the more open I am with them, the more they try for me. And like I said, Colin's teacher and I text almost daily. There are a couple days where we won't text, but we text almost daily. It hasn't happened in a while, fingers crossed. If Colin has a bad day and he's just melting down and frustrated, and he's disrupting the class to the point that the other students can't learn, where it's just kind of all hope is lost, his teacher will text me and I'll go pick him up. Counts against him, but not majorly. That's happened a lot, especially in the beginning of the year. He's been suspended twice due to behavior issues. I don't want to sit there and say everything's been fixed. The progress that we've made in the last, really a lot of it's happened in the last month and a half. It's like the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders, so hopefully that won't continue to happen. But the school's been great with me, and even when the principal does have to suspend him, she's like, I'm so sorry. She's like, I don't want to do this, but his behavior's not acceptable. She goes, she understands that it's not necessarily something that he's been able to control, but a lot of it comes down to having documentation so that we can put a 504 plan in place for him, that we have documentations that his ADHD and ODD are affecting him to the point where he is having trouble functioning. So as much as it gets frustrating, they've been great with me. I have a fairly decent relationship with the school counselor as well, and the assistant principal. And the teachers, we communicate a lot, and the more I communicate, like I said, the more help I get from them. I'm starting to wonder if my school district's poor rating and poor reputation isn't just due to a lack of parental involvement. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot down here. I'm not saying no parents advocate, but there have been things said to me by the principal, the assistant principal, like they thank me for coming in and talking to them and working with them. I've had a comment made to me that anytime that they've ever called me, I'm there. Like, that doesn't happen often. I understand working, especially, if you're low income, and this area is very low income, taking off work it can be so detrimental, but for me at least, my kids come first, their education comes first. My previous employer for a very long time was very understanding of this. We do have plans and we do have goals. This isn't just a medicate and this is life thing for us. Ideally, I want my children to get to the point where they do not need medication, kind of where I am right now. I don't need it. It would probably be very beneficial if I was on medication. I procrastinate a lot. If I was on medication, I wouldn't. But I want my kids to try and self-manage. I always tell them, your medication isn't a cure-all. It helps you slow down. It helps you think. It helps you organize. It helps you be productive. But you are ultimately responsible for your own behaviors. You are ultimately responsible for taking care of yourself and doing the things that you need to do. Can't blame it on medication, which at times we have, the boys especially. They'll tell me my medication isn't working right, which sometimes that's just an excuse. Sometimes it's them communicating to me, hey, my dosage is off, or these meds aren't working. They're not using those words, but they're saying my meds don't work. At first I'll be like, I think you need to try a little harder, but if it continues, it's okay, let's make an appointment with the doctor, let's reevaluate, let's see what's going on. To deal with that is structure. We do best with structure. Having gone to boarding school, there was kind of a tier system, I guess you would call it, where you had certain chores that you had to do, and your behavior reflected your behavior in school and at home in the dorm helped determine where you stood on the level. I am wanting to implement a system kind of like that at home. I haven't gotten there yet. I kind of felt like they were too young. I did speak with their therapist about it at our last family therapy session, and she actually thinks it's a great idea. She definitely thinks I should go ahead and implement it now. So I'm actually going to work on that later this week, trying to get that set up. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. It has not been easy. Like I said, my last employer was amazing. I do not know how I would have handled the last several years had I not been employed where I was. I'm worried about how I'm going to be able to handle this when I do get a new job, because I know not every employer is like that, and I've experienced that as well. That's going to be a struggle, and that's a struggle I will definitely share when I am working. I have, like I said, seen major improvements, but I don't think we're out of the woods. Like, this is not cured. This is always going to be a struggle. We're just managing really well right now. I guess that's it for today. I guess maybe update on me real quick. I have a lot of applications out. Again, I'm trying to make a career switch, and that's really hard when my entire resume is animal care and I'm trying to get jobs that have nothing to do with animals. I do have an application out that is animal care. It's a very good job. It's a decent paying job. It provides amazing benefits, a retirement plan. If I do get through the application process and I get offered the job, I'll probably take it just because of the financial security that it provides. Okay, I guess I'm going to wrap this up. Like I said, things are going to be really chatty right now because I'm on a laptop setup. I don't have the capabilities to do like the clean with me's and stuff like that. I guess I could do like a living room clean with me or fold laundry with me. It would kind of be boring, but it would probably be a voiceover video. Maybe I'll start doing that. Start like setting my laptop up and clean and then do voiceover. I don't know. Would you want to see that? Comment, let me know. And if you liked this vlog, if you were interested in this vlog, if you haven't watched my first one, please go watch it because it explains who I am, why I'm doing this, and what style of vlogger I'm gonna be. Oh, I feel so weird saying this. Subscribe and like, but no, really, like and subscribe if you want to. If you think I'm the type of vlogger that you'd like to follow, why not subscribe for a little while, see if you like it. If you like this and you want to share it, go ahead, share it, tell people about it. We're happy at the end of the day. There's always something to look forward to. There's always a goal to strive for. I want to be there to say, hey, guess what? You're not alone. I'm messy too. Come see my mess. I would love it if people would comment and engage. I would absolutely love to have that engagement, that back and forth. If you need encouragement, go for it. Post, comment. I would love to be your support system. All right, so y'all have a good day. I'm gonna get to editing because I have way too much content again. See y'all next week. Bye.